So as I'm waiting for everybody else to trickle in, one last time I'll introduce myself before we fully go through the run of the show. My name's Allison on behalf of Zencity. Thank you so much for joining us today. I guess it's good afternoon for the East Coast and good morning for the West Coast. So we're hitting all the time zones, and good evening for me in Israel. So in 1 minute, we'll get started because I think we have a full agenda for today. So thank you so much for joining, and welcome to our Zencity College Towns Roundtable. We're going to be focusing specifically on COVID-19 and how it's been affected in college towns, focusing specifically on unique impacts and recovery strategies. The roundtable discussion is actually a product, a grassroots movement from our Zencities who decided that it was an important community to get together and discuss kind of the challenges and best practices. So I'm very excited to be hosting this today. My name is Allison Paisner, and I'm one of the customer success managers at Zencity. I work closely with our local government partners on helping use data and AI, which I'll explain in just a minute, to help with more informed decision making. So without further ado, see if I can go to the next slide. Before I do introductions, I just want to thank, here we go. So for introductions, I would love to introduce the Borough Manager of State College, Pennsylvania, Tom Fountaine, Mayor Steve Patterson of Athens, Ohio, and Deputy Town Manager Eric Hanson of Normal, Illinois. We'll be sharing some of those challenges and best practices during the COVID-19 crisis. You can give a wave because you're on camera. So after an overview from each of our panelists today, we'll be opening up into a roundtable discussion for a unique conversation with our other partners and attendees today who were invited to join the conversation. So like I mentioned, we had a grassroots forum. So shout out to Gainesville, Florida, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Grand Forks, North Dakota, and East Lansing as well. So for any of you who do want to participate in the roundtable or ask a question maybe throughout the webinar today, you can raise your hand in the webinar screen. You can also submit a Q&A or message us in the chat bubble. It would be great if you want to submit questions and comments as we're going through the conversation, so we have a full deck for the roundtable discussion. So I would love to, before we get started, thank on behalf of Zencity's team for all of our local government leaders for being there for their communities and supporting them during this crisis. It is not an easy time. And even as we're pivoting to reopening, we continue to face new challenges, but with new challenges come new best practices. So thank you for your work. For those of you who may not be familiar with Zencity, we're a resident feedback tool that helps local governments of all sizes better understand their community discourse, which is all shared organically online. We work with over 130 local governments, helping them to get a pulse of the community and tap into that silent majority that may not be represented by traditional city channels, as well as help with residents' key questions and concerns around city-related issues. So specifically now, as we're looking at Census 2020, which I know we're going to talk about today, budget prioritization, COVID-19 reopening, crisis management, and more. So what is Zencity as a tool? For those of you who don't know, we're able to aggregate hundreds of thousands of data points, streamlining social media, news media, and city hotlines from online data, both city-owned and non-city-owned channels. And so then Zencity applies artificial intelligence and advanced algorithms to consolidate and analyze this high volume of resident discourse, assigning a sentiment and a category for each data item. So we're able to help you understand better the what and the how your residents are talking. This allows city managers and mayors to quickly identify those top concerns of residents and understand sentiment and to stay informed. In other words, helping to turn data into actionable insights to support that decision-making and to evaluate policies. So what this means over the past 3 months, as coronavirus has kind of emerged and evolved, we're noticing a rise in conversations and organic resident discourse as we're switching to online city halls, online forums, and in-person interactions are decreasing. So we created a special dashboard for our cities to track a more holistic picture of online discourse around the coronavirus, including volume and breakdown of these conversations and sentiment. And for those of you who do work with Zencity, this should look very familiar to you as your coronavirus dashboard. On top of that, though, we're also looking through the trends in the discourse to help support the city's data picture. And this is with our special insights. Our Zencity analyst team is generating these insights to provide actionable bottom line narratives of the data. This is an example, actually, what started it all. This was an example of an insight that Zencity did and provided for State College, showing the resident discourse on rent relief among different segments of the population. And so in general, insights like this are designed to empower cities to sharpen their messaging or to tackle misinformation, improve their services, or in this case, perhaps navigate a critical policy decision. And especially now for the challenges that are arising in light of COVID-19. So honing in a little bit further to college towns, Zencity partnered with State College in creating a data report to help identify trends among college towns and actually small college towns to show how COVID-19 has notably affected their local economies. And you can see in both of these graphs that in college towns and in small college towns, local economy, employment, and rents and fees seem to be a larger percentage of the discourse compared to the average of our Zencities. So without further ado, this is a great segue. I will turn the mic over to State College Borough Manager Tom Fountaine to dive into those data-driven initiatives that you've been spearheading during coronavirus. And Tom, I think you might be muted, so you might wanna, there you go.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Allison. I'm really happy to be part of the webinar here. I guess this afternoon, this morning, and this evening, depending on where we are. So hopefully I'll be able to provide some helpful insights about how State College has addressed COVID-19, both with respect to our internal operations, but also how we have handled our community response, including both our long-term residents as well as our student residents. I should point out that we're continuing to adjust and adapt as we now start to move into the reopening phase here in State College and in large parts of Pennsylvania. However, locally, we're still waiting for Penn State's decision about in-person or virtual education for both the second summer session as well as the fall semester. We will work and continue to work with the university to address the community impacts as those decisions are made in the coming weeks. Let me start with a little bit about State College. As you can see on the slide, State College is located in the center of Pennsylvania, about equal distance from between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. State College is the home to 42,000 residents with a population density of about 9,500 persons per square mile and a daytime population of around 65,000. About 2/3 of our population here are students. And the greater State College area, or the center region as we call it, has a population of around 110,000 people. As the host city for the flagship campus of the Penn State University, the State College economy is closely tied with the university. Our local economy ebbs and flows with the academic calendar, athletics, and other special events, as most of the college towns, and I'm sure many that are on this webinar today, also experience. We could go to the next slide. One of the things that I wanted to highlight is Penn State did announce, as many universities did around the same time, that it was moving to virtual education for the balance of the spring semester. This really was fortuitous in a way because Penn State students at the time were still on spring break. And so many of the students that were away did not come back to State College immediately, coming from hotspots or bringing potential infections with them. And we had some time while our population here was reduced substantially to prepare for the responses and make decisions about how we were going to be meeting the demands of our community going forward. Penn State still, as I noted, has not announced plans. We do expect an announcement sometime in the next 2 weeks with respect to summer session and fall classes. That announcement is expected by June 15th. With students not in town back on March 11th, certainly it did help with social distancing and eventually non-essential business closures. However, the cancellation of big events like the Blue-White spring football game here, commencement, the Summer Arts Festival, and many other local events has had a major impact on our local economy, as well as county and municipal budgets. Along with my friend Steve Patterson from Athens, we've worked closely with a number of other college towns around the country the National League of Cities, the International City County Management Association, and the International Town Gown Association to address economic impacts as well as the serious threat that we face in college towns with undercounts in Census 2020. And we can talk more about that later on, probably in the roundtable as well. If we go to the next slide, I want to talk just a little bit about how we have prepared and show you some examples of the kind of information that we have used. We really started our work 10 years ago as we prepared for H1N1, and we created continuity of operations plan at that time to respond to H1N1. So earlier this year in February, I'd asked a team led by our health department to review and adapt our continuity of operations from the H1N1 plan to address the coronavirus and the response that we would move forward with. Our goal was to have an updated continuity of operations plan to inform and guide our operations approach in responding to this issue. Our primary focus was on those operational actions at the departmental level and to balance the need to protect our employees and the welfare of our residents while continuing to provide essential services to our community. This slide provides a real high-level overview of the three areas that we focused on. The first area was internal staff strategies included in our COVID-19 related programs. We did provide staff with an extension of special COVID related leave, initially 3 weeks and ultimately extended to 6 weeks. This allowed our employees to make decisions about their health and manage their daycare needs and other things without being concerned about using benefits. It also allowed us to modify scheduling within our departments, which I'll talk a little bit more about as we go. What we didn't want to do was to create any incentive that employees who weren't feeling well or had health-related concerns or daycare concerns or any of those factors to come to work and potentially infect others in the workplace. So we thought that was a very important aspect. We've also closed, as many of us have, the municipal building except for limited access on the first floor, and we've encouraged online and telephone transactions for the community. We developed work shifts both within the police department and our public works staff to allow a 1 week on, 2 week off work schedules. This allowed us to limit exposure. After being on for a week, staff could essentially quarantine themselves and stay home for 2 weeks to make sure that they were safe and that they didn't inadvertently infect anybody else in our staff. We also made operational changes, and the first operational change, and these changes were really based on suspending services and were based on the Pennsylvania Department of Health guidance as well as the CDC guidance. We communicated these changes to the community through our performance dashboards, virtual town hall meetings with our neighborhood leaders. We also held virtual town hall meetings with student leaders and daily updates that we post to our website. You can see on the slide the green, yellow, red, which reflects the levels of service that we are providing within the community. Green means we're still providing that service. Yellow means that we have made modifications in the service and that they're impacted. And then red means that those services have been suspended. And we modified our performance dashboards to simply reflect those levels of service within the community. Our team also considered external needs of our community, including safety guidance and information about where to get tested on data on the local impact of COVID-19. Our GIS and communication staff developed and launched a GIS dashboard, which you can also see on the screen. This dashboard provided important information on resources for businesses and residents within our community. We also moved all of our listserv subscribers, and we have a variety of listservs that are available to the community. We moved them all to a blog that was a live blog and received daily updates on important local information. And this site also was ultimately utilized by our surrounding communities to provide information. On the next slide, we also utilized the Zencity survey, which Allison showed in the opening remarks. And this really provided us with a series of unique insights from our residents on ways that we could improve services or ways that we may need to modify services to better address the needs of the community. Within 3 days of launching this survey, we had 533 responses, and it produced really a significant amount of useful information that helped us respond to COVID-19 within the community. On the next slide, we show a little bit about some of the things that we did here. After receiving results, our continuity of operations team, our community engagement staff, and our communications staff prepared recommendations to meet the needs that were identified specifically by this survey. Two of the most important and significant issues highlighted in the survey were how our police department were enforcing social distancing and masking guidance, and how we are reaching those who don't utilize digital communications. I think one of the keys that we saw was also the conflict between our long-term residents and those student residents that had returned to State College and were continuing their virtual education here in State College. Sometimes they didn't always social distance and mask as the governor and the Department of Health were requiring at the time. And so the police department developed and started distributing educational handouts to help inform the public, including those student groups, as a first response in responding to those calls. We also initiated officer-initiated contacts throughout the community-oriented policing program. And police officers also made sure to follow up with the individuals that called to close the loop and let them know what they had done. Another direct response from the survey results was the development of a postcard that we sent out to all addresses in State College. This was also, we worked with the Penn State Law School and the Center for Immigrant Rights to translate the postcard into 5 different languages for our community. And it provided basic information about who to call for help in information in State College. Additional information is shown on this slide, and I certainly can answer any questions you may have about this in the roundtable discussion. So that's a quick overview of where we were and are in State College, and we'll be happy to answer more questions later.
Great, thank you so much for that overview. And now we'll switch over to Athens, Ohio. Mayor Patterson, why don't you give us paint a picture of Athens for us? And you're also on mute, it sounds like, so you might want to. Thanks.
Just when you think you know how to do everything. Allison, thank you, and thank you, Zencity, for putting this on. And Tom, it's always a pleasure listening to some of the interesting and responsive things that State College is doing and has done in the past. Athens, let me paint a little bit of a picture for everyone. Athens and Ohio University. You know, Athens and Ohio University have literally grown up together. Athens was an encampment back in 1797, and roughly 5 years later, Ohio University was established, and it was just established basically as a small school. And so Ohio University is the oldest university in the Northwest Territory, the first university in the Northwest Territory, established by charter through Manasseh Cutler and Rufus Putnam under the directive of Thomas Jefferson. So we go back a long ways. My predecessor had an interesting tagline, and that is that you know, it's hard to destroy a 220-year-old city, and that was pre-COVID-19. Not that the city's being destroyed, but it's just the challenges are vastly different than anyone had imagined some time ago. As you can see, our square miles, our size, about 10 plus square miles of city, population 23,000 plus, daytime population, and largely driven by the health sector and the university, about 40,000. Student population is roughly 18,000. That's both undergraduate and graduate students at Ohio University. Overall, university employment, or enrollment rather, you can see there are several regional campuses throughout the state of Ohio that make up that larger number. And then a few weeks ago, the employees at Ohio University was about 5,500 employees. If you rolled forward to the next slide. So pre-COVID-19, one of the things that I think is critical for any college town is just having real solid open lines of communication between the university and the city administration. We have a standing meeting with President Nellis at Ohio University, and prior to that it was President McDavis. And this has been going on for many years, pre my tenure as the mayor here in the city of Athens. The previous mayor had standing meetings, as did several others before. So there's always been open lines of communication. When COVID-19 really hit, we amped them up from monthly meetings to where I was meeting with Ohio University's senior staff twice a week. We were meeting every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock, giving updates on things that were going on campus. This was starting back in early March, and things that were going on in the city, which was invaluable moving forward. You know, the city had already been experiencing, in the university, experiencing a decrease in student enrollment. I think a lot of people in college towns pre-COVID-19, that was a large part of our dialogue. I serve on the board of directors for the International Town Gown Association, as well as the board of directors for the National League of Cities, and am the liaison between the National League of Cities University Communities Council and ITGA. And so one of the big things we were all tracking was a decrease in student enrollments, and that was for a number of factors. But we knew that was happening. We were doing the best that we could to diversify our local economy, and have been doing that for several years. But again, no one envisioned the rapid acceleration that any pandemic will bring upon any community, and in particular, college towns. College towns are very different from a non-college town in that we are seasonal in nature. For our economy, it is really in a boom during the September to May timeframe, and then we coast into the lower economic gain period. I refer to it in Athens as the summer doldrums, when things are kind of peaceful and calm, and the economy has already planned for that. But with obviously the impacts of COVID-19 and the students not coming back after spring break and transitioning to the distance learning, that really created some challenges that I think a lot of college towns are experiencing. The last point on this slide is the 2020 census communication efforts. We were well underway with our complete count committee. We kind of took a different approach. The Athens County, City of Athens is the county seat for Athens County. The whole county is 60,000+ in population. As I'd mentioned, you saw the city's population, so we're about a third of the overall county population. So we took a triple C approach to where the county and the city work together to create a joint complete count committee. We even had some interesting things that we were going to plan to do pre-COVID-19, things like we were going to rent a Ferris wheel and have people show proof that they were counted, enumerated, and then you can get on the Ferris wheel. Well, that certainly didn't happen. We were doing the best we could because we've got 2 census tracts in the city of Athens in particular that are high density student precincts where we have traditionally had low counts. And so we were planning, trying to figure out the best path forward to really improve that count. So a lot of conversations going on in the census world here in Athens pre-COVID-19. The current situation in Ohio, I have to give a lot of credit to Governor DeWine. Governor DeWine acted quickly and responsibly in coming out with a series of closures to protect the state and municipalities with the pandemic. It started with bars and restaurants and slowly rapidly started to transition to other elements, things like gyms and spas and beauty salons. I think a lot of the states and college towns were experiencing those. One of the things that we experienced right away was the programming that normally took place in our community center, which is where a lot of that revenue comes from, all had to be canceled. We had to just recently make the call, and this is where Zencity has been really, really helpful in tracking what the conversations are out there across the city when we had to make the determination to close our pool for the summer. A lot of that based upon the Ohio Department of Health, ODH, came out with the guidelines, and we realized that for us to have a safe and financially, fiscally responsible operation, that we weren't able to do that. And not that we weren't expecting it, but looking at the information that was coming in from Zencity on that particular issue, and the word cloud came out very clear. The pool was the primary conversation. But the interesting thing is it was great because we were able to see what were positive comments and what were negative comments. And those are the things that in a city you typically are blind to if you're relying to other sources of information on what's going on. So I think a lot of people anticipated that the pool would not be opening. The pool is only 3 years old, and it was a $7.3 million investment for the city of Athens. So we knew that that was going to be a difficult path forward. We had been planning budget-wise as soon as COVID-19 hit. We knew we had to look at everything that we would need to do to keep things running smoothly. But it wasn't until we saw the level of layoffs and the furloughs that are yet to come from Ohio University to where we are now going through the process of unappropriating monies, in particular from our capital improvements budget fund line, to where we are freeing that money up and putting it in other places that we're going to need it to keep running smoothly. So things like that have taken place. I have stood up for several weeks now a group called the COVID-19 Virtual Roundtable, to where, again, we're sharing information from all the various sectors across the city, from faith-based ministries to nonprofits to the financial sector to landlords to our food pantry, getting about 20 to 25 people who jump on a call every Tuesday and Thursday, and we basically share challenges and also share solutions. And some of the solutions that have come out have been remarkable. Things like the public transit system getting the green light from the Ohio Department of Transportation to actually pivot and become, in some cases, a way in which food can be delivered to people that were in need, and our senior citizens, kind of augmenting Meals on Wheels or other food distribution groups. So that has been very effective in the city. We pulled together early on a group, a landlord group, because one of the things that a lot of the college towns across the state of Ohio, and even into West Virginia, I spoke to Mayor Steve Williams in Huntington, West Virginia. Something that people weren't really thinking about was, if you're in a college town, at the end of the semester, you're going to have a rather large influx of people moving out of the off-campus student housing, and then a week later moving into the off-campus student housing. And so 4 weeks before that event occurred, I stood up a group to where we were of landlords, and we were talking through and planning ahead of time, how are we going to manage this? Can we spread it out? Can we encourage people to move out, give a little bit of a variance with your leases and let them move out late? We did, I think, a pretty good job of stretching that out as best we could. But again, it wasn't something that other mayors or city managers across the state had really started to think through when you've got a lot of people right in the heart of the peak, or at least the rapid rise of the cases of COVID-19. So that was very beneficial in the city. So communication was in a lot of different directions. Most recently, we stood up a group of bar owners. Here in the city of Athens, we are the quintessential college town, so we have a large number of bars in the uptown area. Athens doesn't have a downtown, we have an uptown. And so in that area, with the bars, we started meeting well before the governor announced when bars and restaurants would be reopening, to at least start that dialogue. Think about it now, don't wait for the order to come up and scramble, and figure it out. So those were pretty beneficial for my administration to be involved in, but also to get this group that hadn't really collectively come together before, or at least not in a long time. I'm going to save, Allison, the Census 2020 major concerns until we get to our roundtable to talk about the census, because I think for a lot of college towns, this is a real critical piece.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. And thank you for sharing. I just want to send a reminder for anyone who does have additional questions, you're welcome to include them in the chat. And we will revisit them during the roundtable. But feel free to ask your questions as they come up. And last but not least, we are about to hear from Eric from Normal, Illinois.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. And as stated before, I always love getting on these calls because you find out that you're pretty much all in the same boat. You're just doing it from a different location. And so much of the slides I try to gear towards, because I had the luxury of seeing what the others were presenting, not so much focusing on the COVID-19 response, because it's very similar in terms of what was required operationally, both internally and externally. But a little bit about Normal, fairly large landmass of nearly 18 square miles. Our daytime population is just under 53,000 people. Normal is part of the Bloomington Normal regional area, which is approximately 150,000 people live within the Bloomington Normal proper area. Obviously, we're home to Illinois State University, very proud. And Illinois State University is the what used to be known as Normal University. Illinois State Normal is how we got our name all those years ago. Student population, it's just one campus. We don't have ancillary campuses. So undergraduates, a little over 18,000 students. Total university enrollment with graduate students, about 20,000, just under 21,000 students with approximately 3,600 employees working for the university. Illinois State, not dissimilar to many universities, the on-campus housing, i.e. dormitories, is only about 8,500 of those 20,000. Everyone else lives off campus, typically adjacent to the university. So we have a lot of rental units, which makes the census a real challenge, which I know we're going to talk about here in a little bit. A little bit more about Bloomington Normal. We're also the home of the headquarters for State Farm Insurance, which was founded here. We're a major hub for country companies. And most recently, we are the production facility of Rivian Motors, the new competitor to Tesla, with the building the electric trucks and SUVs. So needless to say, between those entities and the university, we have a fair number of people from all over the world coming in and out of our community on a regular basis, even during COVID-19, which in and of itself, as everyone knows, presents some challenges. Next slide.
I can get there.
There we go. So again, just focusing a little bit on terms of what our focus has been, obviously operationally, we've been required to do very similar things in terms of our internal operations to keep our staff safe, to keep continuity in terms of our services, but also continue to communicate with our residents and keep things moving forward. And so we have this dashboard, not dissimilar. Here they can get any number of things, including any emergency orders that have been issued, connections to unemployment benefits through the Department of Employment Security. We have a PATH group, which allows folks to connect with kind of a crisis helpline with those in need. There's a broader regional group called BN Prepared, which provides a number of support services to residents, including students. We often, and I'm sure my colleagues will agree, our students are residents as well. They're here throughout the year, and we treat them as such. And then also other information in terms of closings, and to the Mayor Patterson's point, nothing more enjoyable than closing down a pool and reading all the comments that you get when you have to make that decision. But they nonetheless can get that information here, and then we can use Zencity to see what people are saying about that decision, but it certainly was the right decision. In addition, this is also where we post information relative to our support for businesses, whether we're amending codes, reducing restrictions, reducing, in this case, we had a utility fee that was set to go into place that has been delayed in order to help those who obviously are facing some financial struggles. Further down the page, you can connect on financial data related to the city and the presentation the finance department delivered to the city council regarding what we're projecting in terms of the total impact to the town budget. All in all, just kind of a one-stop shop where they could get the information they need, and then this information is connected through our various social media platforms through our communications team. This in turn also goes to the university, and they have their own platforms with which to communicate with their students and do so in terms of sharing some of that information that's essential. So it is actually pretty seamless. We have a tremendous relationship with the university and have for a long time. And they've been very supportive towards those endeavors. A couple of things, minor things, although we feel like we've had some success. We've started a podcast initiative on a number of subjects that are out there, and then the mayor is also doing a pretty regular video update in terms of where the town is headed next related to the COVID situation. Next slide. One of the things that the mayor did, it sounds similar to what Mayor Patterson was talking about, put together a pandemic advisory council. It's pretty interesting, when you get on this group, the president of the university, we also have a community college here in our town, rather large community college in our town, school officials, finance officials, the CEO, we have a hospital here as well, the CEO, people from the medical profession, and then you put them with small business owners like gift stores and barbers and car dealers and just the gamut of things, and get on a call and listen to the varying perspectives is a real interesting and honestly very helpful process. And so our mayor has led that initiative through the Pandemic Advisory Council. And a lot of what we have done since then has been spun out from those discussions with that group of individuals. And obviously the primary purpose is the recovery. What do we do going forward? It's here. In some cases, the damage has been done, especially to the economy. And yet, if we're going to be resilient communities, we have to continue to move forward. And so how do we do that in a safe manner that allows us to get back to work? I will note, and most of you probably know, Illinois typically is not the quickest to react. We are still not open as a state. We're one of only 3, along with New Jersey and I believe Rhode Island. So we don't actually get to open into our next phase until this weekend, unlike all the surrounding states. But that being said, we work closely with our state in terms of guidelines. And thankfully, we're more centrally located in the state. The outliers obviously have lots of borders with Indiana, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Iowa. And so one of the things that we've been focusing on is, okay, when this opportunity arises, how do we open safely and effectively and get our economy back up to speed as quickly as possible in order to minimize the economic effects, and the mayor's done a good job. So to that end, we're kind of moving now towards, how do we make that happen? There's a group that's being spearheaded by our chamber. We have a good, strong regional chamber that's put together a group with the tagline of creating a kind of a checklist of safe but open, that they meet criteria based on what the state is saying in terms of what businesses should be doing, creating decals to put in the windows so residents and visitors, as they come into town and they see a business, will know that business is committed to maintaining social distancing and masks and those kind of things in order to keep their patrons safe, but also get our economy going. We do know that ISU is planning for a fall return. So for my counterparts that don't know yet, I hope for your sake that your students are able to return as well in State College and Athens, but ISU is planning a fall return. That being said, a fall return that's 10 to 20% fewer students than what left here around spring break. They had been experiencing record enrollment for a number of years. And in fact, we're in the process of adding an engineering college and building a new dormitory that obviously went on hold because of COVID-19. But nonetheless, they are planning on coming back. We're very excited about that. It does present some challenges, but Our uptown, similar to Athens, I think we have a lot in common with Athens, is immediately adjacent to the university. The college is a major driver of the activity within our uptown region. And there was a noticeable difference when they did not come back from spring break, and that has continued to be felt. So we are encouraged, at least, that the university is planning on those students coming back in the fall. And I will also, I think I'll stop here, and since if we're going to have a broader census discussion, there was a couple of points I had about that, but I'm willing to join my colleagues on that subject later on. Thank you.
Great, and I think that was a great summary. I think in all the initiatives and the challenges that you've shared, we kind of touched upon these main 4 points from today. So for those of you who are not part of the forum, we have 4 kind of key pillars that we're going to focus on in the remaining 20 minutes that we have together. And I think we touched upon federal funds and the ways college towns can collaborate as a forum. So I invite anyone to maybe contribute to the conversation online if you want to ask a question with ideas or wanting to participate in the college forum. And I think because of popular demand and the panelists, I think we should just jump to Census 2020. But before we do that, I did have a couple of questions come in specifically focusing on the local economy and the organization of public spaces and helping to boost those small businesses. So I do just want to ask the 3 panelists first if there's been any discussions or exploring the reconfiguration of city spaces around the closure of streets or sidewalks to promote more outdoor dining, socially distant activities in your cities or on the campuses.
I guess I can go first. Yeah, here in State College, we are and have been working on a plan to do that for several weeks now to address, started out primarily as a social distancing plan. If you have ever been to State College, you know the sidewalks are narrow and we have short streets sandwiched between 2 state highways adjacent to the campus. So we have some challenges in that regard, and we've looked at creating a series of one-way streets throughout the downtown core to move parking and travel lanes more to the center of those streets and allow additional space for outdoor retail, some outdoor dining perhaps in some locations, but also wider sidewalks and pedestrian bicycle areas to allow for social distancing. We're a ways away from completing that work yet, but we are working on that and hope to have something in place here within the next 3 or 4 weeks.
You know, Athens is in the same position as you are, Tom, in that we are exploring some different options. Athens has a large number of one-way streets in the uptown area, and we also have a number of construction projects with detours. So that poses an interesting challenge. So we're not looking at street closings. We are looking at parklets, though. And we have metered parking in the uptown area, and working with the restaurants in particular for those who are interested in potentially exploring putting a parklet in a parking space or several parking spaces and working through that to provide more dining. In Athens and in the state of Ohio, indoor dining just opened up last weekend. So that is something that everyone is working through. I don't feel like we're behind the power curve, but certainly looking at options. And also, since the university, the original College Green is right in the middle of the city itself, looking to see if there's potential collaboration with the university to create outdoor dining experiences, or at least areas where people can get their food, carry out, and go sit in one of the university parks and eat there. So looking at a number of options, but at this point, not necessarily looking at closing of streets. That's difficult in a college town, as you could imagine, if to try and do something like that.
Yeah, same in normal. We actually released our plan this week, both in terms of how we deal with businesses in the uptown and then throughout the rest of the community, allowing for outdoor seating. Obviously, the biggest issue is always dealing with alcohol, both in terms of service and then package. I think we've been able to get through most of that. So those go into effect on Friday. No doubt there'll be challenges, but the businesses seem very appreciative and receptive because they want to get back to doing what they do best, and so hopefully these things help them. But doing so in a safe way, still meeting the state guidance and CDC guidance for spacing.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, going back to the idea of even if your state or your county is going back towards indoor dining or other non-socially distant ways in terms of building resilience or being prepared for potentially another wave of coronavirus, exploring these options now and implementing those solutions can better prepare moving forward. So I think that's a great approach to take. And just because we're reopening doesn't mean that the problem is necessarily gone. So that's great. I do have a couple of other questions, but I will save them for the end because I wanted to let you speak your piece on Census 2020. And I think we've identified a lot of challenges. So I maybe would like to start with any potential creative solutions or like maybe focus groups or best practices you have towards trying to help ensure that all of your students are being counted. And I also open this up to the audience as well. So if you want to raise your hands at the end, you're more than welcome to. Sorry.
I can speak from normal standpoint. One of the things that and I assume that Athens and State College is similar, you know, the university can upload their student-controlled housing into the group quarters. We really encourage the university to do that for the spring count, which they did, which will look much better than the fall count. So we're very encouraged by that because that happened about a month ago. But I was just on a call with some census officials last Friday, and one of the things that one of our regional people encouraged us to do is for university towns to work together to encourage the broader census leadership to consider for off-campus housing, allowing them to count them as group quarters and utilize the landlords. I know our landlords here, especially our major property owners, are very willing to upload their data as well. If that was the case, our count would drastically improve from 2010. Not dissimilar to Athens. We have 2 census tracts that encompass the campus that are woefully undercounted compared to the rest of the town. If we could move that initiative forward and work together, collaborate with all the university towns in the country, putting some pressure on the census to allow that, I think we would all end in a better place.
Let me mention, and I know, Tom, you're chomping at the bit because you're thinking what I'm thinking, and so I won't steal your thunder. Let me kind of start with a negative, and then we'll transition to a positive, something that Tom and I have been working very hard on lately. But you know, in the city of Athens, I did mention we have two of the 6 census tracts that are heavy student populated census tracts, and with Ohio University's graduating 2,831 undergraduate students, or at least those there was that many that applied for graduation at the beginning of May, and then 728 graduate students as well. When I look at those numbers, and if I apply that to the 2010 formula for CDBG, for senior services, everything that the census money comes back to each state to support and municipality, if we lose those graduating students who have graduated and now have gone on elsewhere not to return, and we lose that count, for the city of Athens, that could be anywhere between $2.1 and $4.2 million annually for 10 years. So that's a long game economic impact that we're looking at. Right now, one of those 2 census tracts in 2010 had a 47.6% response rate. Right now, it's tracking at 29%. And again, my concern is that if a large number have graduated and not come back, and we will not be able to recapture those, or it's going to be difficult, that there could be substantial financial loss to the county and to the city of Athens. But Tom and I, like I'd mentioned, Tom Fountaine and I have been working really hard with ICMA, ITGA, a lot of acronyms here, NLC. And Tom, I'll let you take it away because it's some fascinating good news. At least we feel that we're gonna keep chipping away.
Well, and I appreciate that, Steve. And Steve has worked hard and been a real leader in that effort. Mayor Patterson has been at the forefront, as has Council Member Gloria Betcher from Ames, Iowa, who I know is also on this webinar today. the work has been going on now for, I've lost track of all time throughout this COVID-19 response. I would say we've been working on this for probably 5 or 6 weeks at this stage. Had numbers of calls with our members of Congress across the country that are representing not only college towns, but are serving on the committees that will be addressing issues related to both Census 2020 as well as the economic impacts. But I think Mayor Patterson summed it up really well. The real concern that we all have is that with virtually all universities and probably all universities closed on April 1st, we run a real risk of undercounts that will have a decade-long impact in so many ways within our college town communities. And certainly while colleges and universities have the ability to do group quarters on campus, we don't have those same abilities as easily available off campus. And I think Eric mentioned one of the things that we've talked about in this lobbying effort has been, in fact, to have the ability to have universities provide enrollment data directly to the Census Bureau to help with those counts. In a community like State College, and I know many other college communities that are fairly similar, we have about 2/3 of our residents are students at Penn State University, and at Penn State, about 2/3 of all students live off campus. And as a result of that, we really are concerned about this undercount. Here in the early days of Census 2020, as we prepared and moved towards April 1st, we had complete counts in State College. Penn State University had a complete count, as did Center County, our county here in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, which is the county seat here. So we had 4 complete count committees working hand in glove with each other to ensure a good count and a good response. And honestly, in many of our communities where we do not have census tracts with high student populations, we're seeing pretty comparable and maybe in some cases even higher response rates for self-response than we saw with 2010. But in those student tracts around State College, we're seeing dismal results. And I think it's important that we have the ability to address that. So one of the things that we're doing in addition, or another thing that we're doing in addition to working with the census to address the ability to upload data with student enrollment, is also on re-enumeration in 2021, and the ability to do that in a way that is not imposing additional financial burden on cities and towns and college towns across the country that have already been significantly impacted by the economic impacts of COVID-19 as well. So I would encourage you all to join in. I know that information has prominently been distributed through ITGA, NLC, and ICMA, and you can find information at any of those sites, and perhaps we can find a way to also make it available here in the recording of this webinar later on for people that want to find out how to get involved in those efforts. It's really, really important work, and I think it's something that we all need to work together in college towns, as well as our colleges and universities that are also impacted by census data.
I think that's a great idea. And just to speak to your point real quick, Tom, after today's webinar, we will send out a recording to all the registrants, in which in the text, I'm more than happy to include those resources if you want to forward them to me, and I'm happy to share them with everyone. I think it definitely is a more the merrier situation here, for sure. And just with our remaining 5 minutes, I have quite a few questions that I believe we're not going to be able to get to today. But one thing that I did want to talk about, we touched upon during our talk today, as it came to decision making. You had tough decisions to make as municipalities, whether it was the closing of the pool or working with the universities and local businesses. And so I have one question about your duty, I guess, to be responsive as local government leaders. Because in some situations, like a global pandemic, it's not always the responsible thing to do what residents want. So I think, like, for example, Tom, you mentioned the Zencity survey. You were able to identify identify key concerns or missing streams of communications. However, Steve, when you were talking about the pool and making those decision makings, I guess the question would be, how are you balancing out being responsive to what you're finding in data and doing what you think is being responsible for your residents? I know that's not an easy question, but I think it's a pain point, because sometimes I actually was on a call last week and I got my communications officer told me, your job is to not do what they want, but to do what they need.
So, you know, I see my dear friend Steve Gavazzi is posed a question that might help me lead into your question. Using how to use the compiled data through Zencity to plan for the upcoming fall semester. You know, and I think all of us are still sifting through the volumes of data that we are receiving. And it certainly helps not necessarily inform our decisions, but it certainly allows us to better explain and message why we've had to make the decisions that we are. Because I have to say, as a city manager or as a mayor, a strong mayor of a city, your first and foremost responsibility is the safety and the welfare of the citizens that you serve.
Right.
And so, you know, again, it helps inform things that we could improve upon, that's for sure, as we're looking at things, but it also lets us kind of make sure that we're getting our narrative correct and addressing the concerns, as well as recognizing the positives that you're doing in your community.
That's a great striking the balance there.
Yeah, and I might add, I think one of the things that we recognize is that as you look at the information that is produced through the Zencity and even in our survey, we recognize that it's not necessarily a scientifically valid sample of public opinion, but it does provide us with indications about what people are talking about, and we're able to drill down into those opinions a little bit. And in some cases, in fact, in many cases, I would say it helps us to craft communication strategies that correct misinformation, that correct some of the conversations that are occurring in the community that may not be completely accurate or based on what's going on. So I do know that through the survey that we conducted, we did discover a gap in the community, and we assume in State College, as I'm sure is the case in almost every college town, and probably every college town, so we have somewhere around a 98 or 99% penetration rate with internet access and broadband, and so we assume everybody is connected. And what we found is that's not the case. We have a number of people, and some in our most vulnerable populations, that are not necessarily connected to the internet or not looking at our web pages. And so we were able then to move to responses that provided information and connected residents with support groups and assistance through non-digital technology and non-digital means. And so we learned something that was where we were able to provide, I think, helpful information as a result of that.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. And I think that's a great summary. Just for the interest of time, I hate to do this, because we can continue the conversation off the webinar online. We have a Zencity community of champions. I think the content today, I want to thank all of our speakers who gave us a lot to think about and a lot to learn from in terms of practical tips and key questions to ask moving forward. So I just want to invite everyone to continue the conversation, and we will be launching a reopening dashboard in Zencity. So focusing the discussion now moving forward, especially as college towns, you have a very clear deadline. Fall semester is starting or it's not starting, on campus or off campus, remote. And so you have a very clear timeline for how you're going to move forward with those different range of decisions. So I want to thank everyone for their time today. I'm happy to stay on the line and if the speakers have the time to answer additional questions, but we've reached our full hour, and thank you so much for participating today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks,
And I
Alice.
look forward to continuing the conversation. So I'll send the email and perhaps have a follow-up for him, because it looks like we have some solutions, but it's not the end of the road yet. So
It's true.
don't want to be too optimistic here.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes, thank you so much for joining today, everybody. Take care and stay well.
You too. See you, Tom. See you, Eric. Nice meeting you.
Yep, nice meeting you. Take care.
Yeah, thank you all.